Okay, so we have just published a book which is about the electronics industry in Europe and in China, and it looks at the business strategies and working conditions in the sector in China and in Europe. And the reason why we did this project is because the electronics assembly and manufacturing is still an important employer in Europe. East Europe in particular has become a sort of hub for electronics assembly in Europe. And we have also a number of companies from East Asia being active in Europe and producing in Europe. So we wanted to see the extent to which these companies have recreated the working conditions that we know from their Chinese operations. And we look at particularly at Foxconn. Foxconn is the largest electronics manufacturer in the world. It produces devices for Apple, for instance for HP. It has also a significant presence in Europe. It has factories in Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, and also in Turkey. So we look at the working conditions and employment relations in these operations, and what we find is that not just Foxconn but also other electronics manufacturers to some extent recreate the working conditions or types of operations they run in China. At the same time, they obviously have to adapt to the institutions in Europe, to the industrial relations institutions, to the labor code we have in the European countries, and these are really important for the outcomes on the ground, for the conditions of workers. And what we also find is that the electronics or the trade unions and electronics face a number of challenges, and these challenges are not specific for this sector, but what's quite unique, I think, is that a sort of number of challenges comes together and sort of reinforce each other in the sector. I just want to mention three, I think. The first one is that in Eastern Europe in particular, we have quite weak industrial relations institutions. Trade unions have to still sort of reassert their role in societies, and that's quite a challenge. And in this context, the role of the state is quite important. So it's really important, for instance, that we have active role of the state in ensuring that the labor code is applied. It's very important that there are, for instance, active labor inspectorates. Well, the second challenge we observe is the heavy reliance on agency workers, and in particular migrant workers. And this makes it very difficult for unions to organize the workers and to represent them in front of the employer. So the unions have to sort of find new ways of approaching these sort of non-standard workers. At the same time, I think there's scope for public policy in terms of what we know, for instance, from the construction sectors, the Institute of the End User Liability. This would help the unions to represent those workers that are very difficult to target directly for them. And the third challenge that we observe, or the third point I want to make, is that while it's very important, or that while it would be really helpful to improve the local industrial relations institutions or the capabilities of the unions to represent the workers in the factories, this is a sector where the manufacturers actually have quite a weak role in the whole value chain. This is a sector dominated by the lead firms, by the big brands like Apple, HP, and it's a sector where it's very important to develop effective means of organizing internationally and across the value chain to target not just the manufacturers but also the lead firm, the brands, and that's a challenge that the unions face.
Thank you.